In the last video, I described to you how you would produce your artist's analysis. In this video, I'm going to talk you through how you produce your artist responses. So both of those two things are going to go together in your sketchbook pages. Now you're going to come up with 3 different artists at least. So what you want to try and do is think about choosing artists who are stylistically different enough from one another. You don't want to have 3 artists who are exactly the same, otherwise you'll have 3 very similar responses as well. The reason you're choosing artists, the reason we're looking at artists, is so that you can refer to them and hopefully you should have some inspiration on the rest of your project. So that's really the key thing to do. So in the last video I talked to you about this, about how to analyse the work of the artists. Now what you're going to be doing is starting to put together both your analysis and your responses to the work. So what do I mean by the word response? Well, a response is a piece of work in the style of, okay? So you're not just doing a copy, you're doing a piece of work which looks similar to the artist's work themselves. Here is a very good example of a student's work in response to the artist Alan Fletcher. So they've used the style and the look of the artwork and they've produced a piece of work that looks similar to theirs on the right hand side. They've called it a direct response. So this is a double page in their sketchbook. So that's something similar to what you're going to need to do. You're going to need to have your analysis and you're going to need to have your response. Now how you present that is up to you, okay? But I'll show you some other examples of how students have produced their responses first. So on the left hand side is the student's response which they've done to Janine Ruel, whose work is on the right hand side. Okay, so their work went over a couple of pages. So they've looked at the work of the artist, which is towards the top. They've actually done a similar copy, but then they've also worked from there onwards and produced some responses, and they've done a digital response there. Which combines together the colours, the style and the look. So when you do your response, you really want to be thinking about what materials the artist use. Have you got access to those? What colours did the artist use? Can I use those in my version? And how am I going to apply it to my project? Okay, so you've chosen an artist because you really like them, but maybe you've chosen an artist because they do something similar to the brief that you've chosen. Okay, so how are you going to do a response? You're not just going to complete a piece of work which looks exactly the same. You're going to try and see whether you can adapt it and stylize it so that it's something new. Okay, that's where your marks are going to come from. And hopefully this work will then later influence your ideas, your development, and hopefully as well into your final pieces. Here a student has used a photograph, and they've used the photograph of themselves to develop a piece of work in the style of Roy Lichtenstein. Okay, so you can see there they've used a similar colour style, they've used similar black outlines and that half-tone pattern, which is the dots around the inside of the image. In this example, the student has used the work of Iko Tanaka, and this page you can see that the student has used a digital version. They've adapted their face to fit the picture. On the right hand side they've used an image to help them produce some imagery based around the Isle of Wight Festival. This is the artist's work there on the left hand side, and you can see they've also done a direct response which is very similar to the work there. They've also described it, as I've said in the previous video, about how to go about doing that. So those are your artist responses, and ideally you're going to need 3 artists to produce. Okay, I would say at a minimum. So have a look over this page, then start to think about your artists. If you've chosen your artist designers and other references, have you analysed your artist's work? Have you trimmed and prepared these images for mounting? And have you produced 3 artworks and designs in the style of your chosen artist and designers? So really you want to be thinking about that carefully and clearly. 3 artists, at least 3 responses overall over the course of those 3 artist pages. If you want to do more, that's more than fine. Try and see how you think about producing those and presenting them. Look at how the student has done some presentation, these different ones. In this instance, the writing is in the middle and the other work surrounds it, the title's towards the top. Okay, can you think about how you're going to present it? Are you going to mount it on paper? This student has done some flicky, painty background. Are you going to do that? Are you going to have all of your text in one bulk and then the rest of the work around it? Okay, are you going to handwrite it or are you going to type it? Generally, I would suggest typing will look better than handwriting. My handwriting is not that great, so it might be worth thinking about doing that. Anyway, hopefully that covers everything you need to know about your artist responses for GCSE graphics. If you've got any questions, please let me know. The next stage will be going on to producing some ideas, some initial ideas based on your first thoughts. So as I said, any questions, let me know, but thank you very much for watching.